what's going on, guys? It's me, Train Man, and welcome back to 4 times speed. Of course, not quite as fast as the last episode was, and this one's probably going to be late again, which I apologize for. My excuse this time is I had to take my parents to the airport at 5:30 in the morning, and thus slept in a little bit. A little bit more than I meant to. Ignore the plane, plane, that's not a plane. Ignore the train. Anyways. We are doing more in this, and I did more of this work again while I was chatting with people, so I may be a little bit less productive than I normally was, but I worked for a lot longer. So that balanced out pretty nicely, I'd say. Why is my microphone part of the way down? Let's up that. There we are. You may notice the noise has significantly decreased, and my volume and the amount of times that I'm blasting out the highest reaches of the microphone has significantly decreased, because I turned down the gain. I went into my microphone settings and I fiddled around for quite a while in order to adjust a problem that was occurring where it would slowly up the volume on my microphone more and more and more, and it actually kind of brought me down to the level that most of the people on Skype are at, and maybe even a little lower, which was, albeit, kind of its own problem, but it managed to allow me to fix most of the stuff. Now, when we're done with this today, I believe we only have one major section left to do in terms of texturing, and one section that requires objecting, whatever I was calling that. Before we go any further, though, I'm going to have to point out that I realized my mistake at last as to why the mountains that I'm building right now look so different than the mountains that I was building in the past. And that boils down to the fact that I switched the ratios. Now, originally those old mountains, they were done in much the same way that these ones are done. Of course, you get the yellow stone and the brown stone and the mud. Except I was using the mud far more frequently. B, I was using the yellow stone for the striations and the brown stone to fill in the gaps, instead of doing it the other way around. And now I realized this when I came to this mountain over here, and that thought finally struck me, like, oh, now I get it. But it was, it's too late now, and I'm not going to go back and fix this whole thing, so we just have some dry-looking mountains, unfortunately. And I'll remedy that when we get onto other sections of the map, and maybe eventually come back and fix this one. We will see. We've got plenty of work to do, and I'm trying to keep it interesting, even though these episodes are, what do you call? They're drawing out. The speed has been helping, the post-commentary has been helping bring the kind of stuff down, and the ability of me to work while I'm on Skype with people has been making me get more done than I probably would have otherwise, which is very good, I would say. And it's also, or rather, thus it's lending to more productive videos and probably be finishing these areas in quicker times than I ought to have, although it's still slower than what I had hoped for. The reason I talk about the people I'm on Skype with, or the reason I talk about the fact that I am on Skype with people, is because I'd like to talk a little bit more about the series. Now, I am, the series being the Iron Horseman Chronicles. We're getting along there. I finally nailed down some of the female voice actors, because we didn't have any to start with. I have to talk to a couple people about voice acting, and then maybe rearrange some of the voice actors based on what kind of voices certain characters should have. And I need to I'm taking it upon myself. I'm not sure if this should be considered a overreach of power, but I'm taking it upon myself to kind of sit down and analyze the characters that we have and kind of maybe adjust some of them so we have a greater spread of characters in terms of, people who are goofy, people who are straightforward, people who like jokes, hate jokes, people who are, I'm not sure what the word would be. We have a couple of trainers people now. We have people who prefer different appearances. The old guys are kind of, more vocal about certain things. Lee, for one, doesn't like Vanderbilt tenders. He says the appearance is inefficient. But that's his prerogative. And Mark, which is a Milky's engine, is doesn't prefer narrow gauge, does not like narrow gauge. So there's one little interchange. I changed up who I was talking to. I had to exit and fiddle with the call for a minute. Speaking of call, let me just go on a tangent here. I'll come back to what I was talking about. Speaking of call, I reached the 25-person limit in my Skype group today, in one of them. I didn't know there was a 25-person limit. Apparently you can only have, or not you can only have, you can have as many people as you want. But what you do have is a limit on the amount of people Skype will call at once. It refuses to let me call the whole group anymore. I have to go into the list of people, select a bunch of them, and then right-click and select call. And that'll start a call with those people, and I'm not sure if the other people can join in. I haven't really looked into that. I'm sure once everyone figures out how to do it, we'll see more group calls in the Warships crew, but until then, I guess I'm the only one who knows how to start a call. Anyways, there's also always the option of bringing it around to other groups, etc., etc. Skype has its limitations, as you would expect. And it has a limit of, throw a bunch of people in a call and then hit the call button and spam a ton of people. Oh, so, right now, take a look on the screen. I'm adjusting the 2%, the 2-foot grade to around between 2.5% and 3% at a maximum. And I could have done better, but it was more of, like, I need to just get this out there and get this all set before I forget about it. Now, it's at least climbable for an engine without struggling at 4 miles an hour. We also come back and do some more texturing around here later. Realized I have to adjust that manually because it looked weird. By the end of this episode, I have every single striation I need done. Which is good. Which means that next episode, I'm going to be calling on you guys to vote for where we're going. Man, isn't that gonna be great. For the first time in a long time, we'll be starting something new. And I wonder just what that's going to bring. I don't think there's a point at which we can break into the plains yet, but I could just make some of the areas we go to more interesting in terms of terrain. Instead of just mountains, because, getting tired of mountains. Or, of course, we could be revisiting an old place. But I'm not particularly interested in doing that just yet, even though it would probably help. More or less. Also, every time I bring on a new copy of the TVA and ARR into TS12, it's been just a whole procedure to get all the dependencies. Because I've added more to the map every time. Well, not quite as much recently, but if you've taken, for example, me building Arturo, I added a lot of buildings. And those people who downloaded the first alpha got all the dependencies, or most of the dependencies, then went downloaded the second alpha and didn't. Basically have a town that's missing everything. Most of its buildings, to say the least. One of the things I wasn't too happy about trains doing was when I upgraded, you have all the textures, for example, let's say we have all the textures, but then you go in and that some of the textures are not the same textures. They have the same name and the same KUID, but the game, they're a different color in-game than what they were before. One of those that really bugs me is that a kind of mossy stone that we use, later in the episode you'll see, we use along the banks of the swamp, and use pointing more towards the mountains. Also, in building Lee's Line, I've discovered how good tree-covered hills look. And, I mean, I should have assumed that anyways, it's kind of a thing I see all the time. Normal mountains, or most mountains, that aren't the Rockies, or incredibly tall, don't break the tree line, and thus aren't barren like this one is. It would have trees all up the side of it, and pretty much no matter what. You'd likely get some spaces, like spaces that were too tall to, or too heavily graded to, have trees grow on them, but other than that, you just don't see that kind of thing very often. So from here on out, we might see more tree-covered stuff. On the other side of the swamp, I could probably reinstate the forests, and this could just be a very arid rise that trees don't grow on because it isn't warm enough. I don't know. Something like that. I'm sure we could get away with that. All the stuff to the east of here, yes. All the stuff to the east of here is pretty much tree covered, because that's where all the forestries are anyways. And all the stuff to the west of here is pretty much tree covered, because that's where the other half of the forestries are. So, we're getting this kind of forestry vibe just about everywhere now. And the rest of the stuff that doesn't have forestry on it is pretty much fields. So, this may be, it won't be, but it may be some of the last big mountains that we have to finish. Now, I'm not quite sure if the Iron Horseman Chronicles map is bigger than this one, or I assume it will be, actually, because I have Lee's line as it stands is probably larger than the distance from Temeros to Galgora, and that isn't even halfway to the edge of the map. The next map I do is going to be digitized. Well, to be honest, the next map I do is going to be real, so that's kind of beside the point. We'll be covering actual distance, and I'll be building about, I believe I said at one point 500 miles of main line, maybe? I don't know. 500 miles as the crow flies, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. Either way, I'll be building segments, and I'm going to try my damnedest to make it look good, and make it look real as well, because these are all places that, if I were to get the chance, and I probably will, because by the time I'll be working on that, I expect I'll be out of college and kind of onto a daily life, I can go, A, explore the grade that exists, B, explore the scenery around said grade, and then make the map based on that. Now, whatever it comes out as is kind of a different story, but I will try my damnedest to make it look good. Also, I'm going to need assets, of course, like Providence Union Station, because the Providence Northern runs to Union Station. This is in an era where they hadn't moved to the new station. But, you know. The new station is kind of nice, but it doesn't match the luxury of the old one. And I've never actually been in the place, so I'm not sure how it looks from the inside, but the yellow brick from the outside it's a cool looking station. It's not got some of the ornate, it hasn't got most of the arches, it hasn't got, like, a lot of the ornate crap that, a lot of the old stations do, like, you know, big facades, but it's just a lineup of kind of, you know, to be honest, it's the perfect station for Rhode Island. It's kind of understated. Providence was the convergence of the line from the east, the line from the west, the line from the north, and the line from the east. So you had the line from the east that ran out to Newport, of course, to join with the old colony lines, the shipping service. You had the line that ran out to the east and then to the northeast. The Newport line was east and then south, and that ran out to the end of Cape Cod. You've got the line to the north that ran to Boston, and lines to the north that ran to places like Worcester and the like. And you had the line to the east that ran through Connecticut to New York. And those are just kind of your basic things. You had, I mean, in the age where railroads were everywhere. And even though Rhode Island is small enough that you didn't have that many grades or that many little companies that kind of cropped up and then got, of course, gobbled up by bigger companies, you had rail lines that kind of got all over the state. I mean, again, you could get to Newport on one, which you can't do anymore, but the Barrington Rail Revival Project will fix that. And that's the zombie train for the record. So, coming back to stuff that's relevant about this. But, yeah. So we kind of had an understated station. It's not a very big building. It's not a very, brazen kind of look-at-me building. It's just kind of unassuming, really. It's It's there. It's in Providence, it's there, but it's not the thing that you see first when you come into Providence, especially these days. We've got our 3 tallest buildings lined up next to one another. One of them they call the Superman building because it looks like, what do they call it? Whatever the paperman from, the paperman? Whatever the newspaper company, the Daily Planet, I think, the Daily Planet building looked like. I think so. You know, I'm going to Google Rhode Island Superman building and see what comes up. So just hold tight for just 1 second. Rhode Island Superman building. Hey, it does come up. Yep, the Bank of America in Providence. Formerly the Industrial Trust Tower, referred to as the Superman building. I don't know what it says. You know, maybe it's down in the... No, let's see. Also lists the tallest buildings in the United States. You can see it in the background of Family Guy. I was looking at the, yeah, as a resemblance to that comic in the 1950s television series. Yeah. During the 1950s, it was rumored that 111 Westminster Street, which is the building, served as the model for the Daily Planet building in the Superman comic book. Of course, that has a little citation needed next to it, but I assume we'll never know if that was the case or not. Hold on, I'm just going to look up Daily Planet. Oh, it does come up building. And of course, Providence is the first result there, but 1950s. And these are not good pictures of it. So I'm going on an adventure right here. And that is awfully not helpful. Because these are all real pictures. I want the one from the comic book. Come on. Oh, is this it? Nope, that's not Superman. Oh wait, Superman comic. Maybe not. Nope, it's just people saying that looks like the Daily Planet building. The hell? Okay, I don't even know. I was gonna try and look up the building and see the similarities, but that isn't gonna happen apparently. Anyways, getting back to the topic at hand. Let's just take a step back to that unassuming building with the State House next to it with the 4th largest freestanding dome in the world, and I'm placing down stupid amounts of trees here. That's the thing you see when you first walk into Providence, or that and the Providence Place Mall, the Daily Planet building, if you come in by train, of course, you see the station first, you turn around, you see the clock tower on the station. But, you know, and the Providence Place Mall, which is big, for Rhode Island at least. And the new, I think it's called like the G-Tech building, and the basin, the waterfront basin apartments, whatever. The Iway Bridge, which you can see clearly from just about anywhere in Providence because we're small. Anyways, come visit Rhode Island. It's a great place. It's gotten a lot better than it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. It ain't, it sure as hell beats Troy in the not sketchy department. Troy is actually easily comparable to how Providence was maybe 30 years ago, before we had the big revival, and they redid downtown, and rebuilt Westminster Street, and uncovered the river. But enough talk about Rhode Island. We need to talk about the Iron Horseman. There's really no way to link that together. By the way, we don't have anything on an island. That has to go somewhere on the 2-foot line now. That's what they would do, wouldn't they? You know, build an embankment out to this island where there'd be a town. That's going to be on the 2-foot gauge. Let me crack open the map. Let me see where I'm going to put this thing. I wrote a little bit more in Firefall, by the way. You should be getting that eventually. We've got the Iron Horseman Chronicles document on Google Docs. Thank you. Thank you, Google Drive. Scrolling down to the towns. Come on. Where are you? Ah, there we are. The big map. F2, or maybe F1. Those are two different towns. F2 is called Worcester. F1 is called Blindside Bluff. Oh no, F1 is up in the air. Blindside Bluff is up in the air. F2, however, is not up in the air. Oh wait, no, it is. Hold on, F2. F2 is Worcester. It's out in the middle of nowhere. of course. It's got nothing else near it other than a 2-foot line. It's, it wasn't built directly to, yada yada yada. It's one of the remnants of the 2-foot gauge that I talked about last episode. Oh yeah, this is where I'm using this texture, by the way. So we've got this 2-foot line that goes out to the middle of nowhere. And there's going to be a lake out there. There's going to be a pretty big, shallow lake. Not done by... It's completely natural. It's not a swamp, because the water does move. But think of it as a stupidly wide river with current that won't blow you away. So it's entirely possible for someone to walk from the island to shore, usually. There may be a deeper section of the river nearby, so I may have to include river on the map. But, include a new river there, so that'll be, just one of several. And that gives me an excuse to put a waterfall where I wanted to on Lee's line, which I was gonna do anyways. But I wasn't gonna have that river go anywhere. Now I can. But we're gonna have a pretty sizable... We already have a waterfall at the what is it? The stone bridge, it's just called. Simple name, of course. It's the only stone bridge on the route. And it is actually kind of a vital way to get from... Oh, that's right. That's what I need to do. I need to include some dirt roads that kind of run through Lee's line. I'll have to adjust the splines and the trees for that, but it's going to give the area more character. I've yet to put in grass. I mean, I have the grass texture, but I don't have the tall grass, which is what I need to make the line look, what's the word? Real? Proper? So, that's that. We'll get around to that, I'm sure. So I'm just coming along doing the ballasting. This is some of the last texturing we have to do. I get all the texturing done except for one facade here. Some of this I come in and do with the other brush because, it should be done that way. And I'm just kind of boxing in the track here. Again, this river is the farthest I'm going, and the track is the farthest I'm going as well. Which is why I didn't texture the mountainside of the track, because A, I'm not sure what it's going to look like, because B, I don't know what it's going to be over there. And it's really not something we have to care too much about, considering, but... So I start breaking up the striations a little bit here with grass, and that's not purposeful, so I come back and fix it. And you'll see that in a minute, and I could be using a bigger brush here, but I don't know, for whatever reason I wasn't. I forget that the plus and minus buttons can adjust brush size, so I tend not to touch them. If I remembered that all the time and I touched them and used them more, no touching zone. If I used the buttons more, then I'd probably be adjusting brush size way more often, because I don't adjust brush size more often because I have to move the cursor over there and then move it back. I don't know why that's stuck in my head as something that I just can't do. And I try to do my damnedest with the big brush here, but that's not quite, it doesn't quite fill in all the empty spaces. I'm, having to fill in the little cracks here, or redo the little cracks, I should say. And putting down trees here is going to be a bastard, because those little boxes of trees that I was using earlier are not easily worked with, so I might just go through and do trees manually here. And of course I should go along the 2-foot gauge and just spread grass. Spread grass around everywhere. Because why not? And we'll get to that. Anyways, the thing I wanted to talk about is the other thing we nailed down today, which is the port. Now, it'd probably be Jader's place to talk about this more than I can. And as it is, I don't know particularly much about how the port is. But I know things we're going to be shipping out are like iron ore and coal, and everything wood-related. as well as everything oil related. TBA, if you are watching this, put down an oil refinery and tracks to it and etc. in Wyvern. Do it. Make use of that stupidly huge yard that you have on the other side of the mountains. Anyways. Also, Wybold, I know you're probably not going to watch this, but Wybold, put down, when you build Kerosene Valley, put oil wells down there. We're going to have most of our crude shipped off map from map exit east, but, we're going to need to have some domestic oil. If you have oil carriages for the 3-foot gauge, which I'm sure you can, find somewhere. Knowing you already have, like, everything for the 3-foot gauge. He's the master of 3-foot. His job is to build the 3-foot gauge. So he's that's the extent of it. He's got probably more work than anybody else in terms of the 3-foot gauge, in terms of building track and building scenery. Which is why he's got kind of extra time. I don't intend to include the 3-foot in well, it's certainly not in the first episode. Maybe not in the second episode, but potentially. I think the easiest way to intro... By the way, we have worked on the script for the first episode as well, and that's why I wanted to talk about the port town, Davenport, because it is the first setting of the first episode of the first season of the Iron Horseman Chronicles. So it's the thing that kicks everything off, and we meet Cole and Williams and Stallion first things first. But things aren't quite all copacetic, I should say. As not to spoil anything else, I don't know the backstory of the area, so I can't brief you guys on that. I should kind of come up with a good backstory for Worcester. Oh no, you know what? I need to change Worcester and Waterville. We have a town called Waterville. TJ insisted that I make one. And so now Waterville is going to be the one in the middle of the lake. Because that's the way it ought to be, right? Right. Now this is some of the last work I do today, and I will see you guys next week, I am sure. Possibly with a video that's on time. Unbelievable, right? Hopefully, if this thing takes under 2.5 hours to get done and get up on YouTube, then maybe you'll see it, but you probably won't. So, hello from January the 9th, and I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time, and I'll see you guys out on the Iron Horseman Railroad for some interesting affairs out on the tracks.